Hi, everyone. So it's a getting started session. I wonder how many people here are actually engaged in starting or in the starting phase of a community energy project. I would say that's the first year, unless you're a wind project, in which case it's the first 5 years. A hydro project first 10, apparently. So a lot of what I say is probably going to be completely known to a lot of people here, but hopefully it will be of use to some. Claire and I made a pact. We would only each do one slide about our organisation and how brilliant we are. So Sharenergy, we're a spin-off from Energy for All. You've heard about Energy for All from Jon. I don't have a uke. We didn't get handed the ukes when we spun off. And we're a co-op, and we help people set up renewable energy co-ops. We've been involved in about 70 projects. There's 28 co-ops set up with our model rules. And there's a list of the sort of stuff we do. And we work across the technology. So whereas Energy for All, we still work closely with Energy for All. They work on bigger winds generally, and we work on all the other technologies and the small stuff. That's how we split it up. So I've entitled this five things we've learned. So these are 5 lessons that we've learned in working with all those other projects, and we've learned as much or more from projects that haven't worked as we have from projects which have. Number one is follow the land, follow the weather. So this is renewable energy. This is about what's available in your area. And quite often people start from a position, we really want to do wind, we really want to do solar. They start from a technology. That's often not a very productive way of starting. And another thing is we want to do something which is in our parish. So they start from quite arbitrary geographical subdivisions. Doesn't work very well for renewable energy. It's better to think bioregionally, better to think to imagine where you live in geographical terms, very appropriate given where we are. Perhaps in physical geography terms rather than in human geography terms to some degree. I mean, the biggest thing in finding a project is really copy other people. There's a hell of a lot of reinventing of the wheel going on, not just between different community energy projects, but also over time. And one thing we've done with a lot of groups is do these things we call open map sessions, and we get out the local OS maps in the back of a pub or something. And we look at the maps and say, well, what could be done locally? And chances are we find stuff like, this is a classic. You do all this sort of, you look at all the constraints mapping and, where is it windy and where's near houses. And at the end of it, you look at the map and it's always called something like Windmill Hill, Windmill Lane doesn't look particularly good for access. This isn't actually a real site, by the way. So if it's somebody's house, then talk to me. It doesn't look too bad. Your team is super important. I mean, I think everybody recognises that, and it's almost a cliche to say that. I think it's quite important for community energy projects to have a moment of thinking about their team rather than just bringing together whoever is up for it locally. We have a sort of rule of thumb with new groups, which is if there isn't at least one person who makes you slightly nervous in your group, then you aren't doing it right. because you'll need a range of skills, and generally people who start community energy projects are highly idealistic people, and highly idealistic people on their own are not going to be able to deliver. They need to bring in other people. One of the key things is that we found again and again with projects is if you want to connect to a community generally, find the people that everybody else knows. So work through people who already have an importance in your local community. If you've been banging the drum for green stuff for the last 25 years, chances are you're not the most popular person in your community. And the other thing on that front is you're telling a story. You're telling a story about how the world could be. This is a very sort of transition idea here. And it has to be a story that people want to join up to. I mean, the environmental movement, which I've been part of all my life, is specialised in telling stories that nobody wants to join up to. and this is an opportunity to change that. This is quite a good example. This is the board of Dingwall Wind Co-op. You'll notice one schoolboy error here. Yeah, they're all blokes. The two people on either side of the landowner and his son at the sides. And when we decided that we wanted to do it in a co-op way, I said, go and find local people that everybody knows and that people trust. And they found these three guys. Everybody knows Miles because he delivers firewood to most of the people in the area. That's the guy on the second left. Everybody knows Dennis because Dennis is involved in a lot of philanthropic organisations and charities locally. And everybody knows Jon because his dad runs the local livestock auction mart. So in Dingwall, we're in the Scottish Highlands, and livestock auctions is basically where it's at. And what we found is that this picture is actually what we used for everything. So we've got a big picture of them, big banner of these guys, and they actually feature on the front of our share offer document. And what that's enabled us to do is reach a whole load of people in that area. I mean, nobody in Dingwall's got a history of working with green groups. There isn't one. Nobody's got a history of working with co-ops because there are no co-op share offers that have happened there. But we raised half the money we need in the first 4 days from that share offer. One cardinal issue, and this is something which is perhaps starting to become less of a problem with community energy projects. Projects get started because people can see the need for green generation. They can see the need for community organisations. They don't necessarily pick the winners, and this was alluded to earlier by Jon. We would say do financial planning from the beginning. So don't just say this would be a great thing to have a wind turbine, and then X years down the line work out how it will get paid for. There are enough models out there. You heard from Andrew earlier on today. There's our sort of cooperative model. There's the Energy Fuel model. There's loads of models out there, and you can talk to us and say, well, how would your model work with my project? There's something you need to do early. And that's part of valuing your time. I mean, anybody who's involved in community energy is a pioneer, is a completely unique sort of person. There's not many people in the UK doing that right now. And we need to work on stuff that will work and which will have an impact. It's not valuing our time correctly to work on stuff which is really super marginal. I've said the common currency is currency. You know, when you're going out there trying to explain stuff to members of the public, they don't get climate change yet, by and large. They certainly don't get community energy, but they do get money. Most people get money. That's the legacy of Thatcherism, if you like. But that's where we are in this country. So if you're going to engage with people, you're going to engage with the wider public through money. So get the money bit right. These are some projections we did for simplified projections we did in one of our share offers, just to sort of try and make the money part really easy to comprehend. I won't talk through them. Which president was it had it on its wall? It's the economy, stupid. I've got a sign saying it's the landowner, stupid. Actually, I don't, but I should have. Your projects, all community energy projects, depend on landowners. If you have found a landowner who doesn't look like they really get it and doesn't look like they're really going to do it, they probably will end up not doing it in the end, and you're wasting your time, largely. I mean, you can spend a little bit of time getting them warmed up, but working with people who are only in it for the cash is probably not going to happen. Sign landowners up early, because otherwise all you are is an advice service. You can spend quite a long time telling people how brilliant renewable energy projects are, and eventually they'll just go off and find their rich mates and do it themselves. Or, in the case of councils, find really elaborate ways of not doing it at all. And the other thing is, once you've got a landowner, make them work. Actually make them pay for stuff, make them get up and represent your project. It's a sort of rogues gallery. I mean, this is a project, you can see, here's the CAD drawing, this is a hydro project. We did a load of work on this. It's a really nice project. And after 2 years of work and about £30,000 of feasibility money, the landowner's wife said, well, we don't actually want any more people walking down that footpath, which is that blue line there, because they'll come down the footpath to look at the hydro. We don't really want that. Well, okay, complete waste of time. Project gone and never going to happen. This is a PV project on a school. I hope I have got rid of all the details here so nobody can work out where they are. A PV project on a school, and essentially one of the school trustees right at the end, this is 2 weeks from installation, said, I don't like the colour of the panels. A classic case of not invented here syndrome. It wasn't their project, so they would find a way of killing it. Again, not a willing landowner. Great example, Mark's here somewhere. Mark, are you here? Yeah, so Mark's been working on this for ages. Shrewsbury Hydro, I will identify this. You know, this is a classic scene. This is the weir in Shrewsbury, and this is Mark's fantastic montage of what it would actually look like as a hydro project. As you can see, it's not really that different or particularly horrible. And it's been 5 years now we've been talking to the council in Shropshire and saying, guys, you know, will you do this or not? And they've found various different ways of saying, well, our procurement policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you know, that project continues, but local authorities are some of the worst offenders on the landowner front, the landowner waste of time. This is a landowner we're working with in Shropshire. It's a really beleaguered project. We're putting up 2 wind turbines in rural Shropshire, and there's Clive standing up and just saying, look, I support this project and this is why. That's the kind of landowner you want. This is heretical. Resources are abundant. There's lots, there are no excuses, even though there are lots of structural things which make it really hard to do community energy projects. Development funding is easy. I mean, there's everybody will tell you that it's not, but actually out there at the moment, there are a load of funds out there. There's support from people like the Cooperative Enterprise Hub at the small scale. There's support from DEFRA. There's an upcoming fund from DEC. And if those don't work, well, how important is this? Just have a whip round. So what we did with Woolhope Wood Heat project is we didn't have any money, so we went to people and said, will you lend us some money? And if the share offer comes off, we'll pay it back plus 10%, and if it doesn't, sorry. And so we got 30k, because we just asked sort of cheekily. Nowadays, you can do this through a pioneer share offer, which people will be familiar with, a super tax-efficient way of doing the same thing. If you want development funding, I don't think we've ever seen a project fail because it didn't get development funding. In fact, there may even be an inverse correlation. The project's got loads of easy development funding, didn't become strong enough to pull through. And there is an interesting observation there somewhere. Selling shares is easy. I mean, it doesn't seem like it when you're running a share offer. We're involved in 4 at the minute, but there's over 30 million quid invested in community energy projects in this country, in community energy co-ops, and there are fantastic tax benefits for it. Hardly any share offers have actually, a lot of them have been extended, but hardly any of them have actually failed. Selling shares is easy. You can get the capital. You have to believe that. And lots of people come out for woodwork. So, you know, for example, in a project we're involved in, Lean Solar's Community Hydro in Shropshire, the main engineers on the project sort of dropped out, and we were left with nobody who knew anything about engineering. And these 2 guys who were both members who'd both put money into the co-op, they're both in their 80s, retired civil engineers, just both of them popped up and went, okay, we'll sort it. Well, you know, one of them had grown up in Canada and knew the best way of keeping logs off weirs, right? You know. And people will pop up, and they're not necessarily super eco people. They're not necessarily from the kind of cohorts that you might normally hang out with, but people will pop up, and people want to help. People want to be part of these enterprises. I mentioned 4 share offers at the minute. I mean, if you're involved in project, and people often don't do this, I notice. People don't actually go and get the share offers. Go and get part of those share offer documents. You know, invest, become members of other co-ops. It's not, people sometimes think, oh, well, if I push people towards other co-ops, there'll be less people to invest in mine. I think that's really mucky thinking, and it's not the way it actually works in reality. If people have done it once, they want to do it again. Just briefly, JCC Biomass, it's heating a school with biomass. Llangattock Green Valleys, fantastic hydro co-op in Wales, the Beacons. Dingwall Wind, none of you can get shares in Dingwall Wind because it's allocated by proximity, and all the shares will go to people in the town probably, unless there's people from Dingwall here. No, I didn't think so. And Wedmore PV, which is a megawatt solar field in Somerset. Thank you.